Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and tonight I'm joined by Chris McElwain, Kevin McCluskey, and Sean Connolly to discuss Celtic 5, Aberdeen 1. I'm going to come to you first, Chris. And not much to complain about, was there?
No, we played a more familiar style in that second half. It's more what we're used to. Weirdly, I think we played, I think with much more swagger, much more control, and much more assurance, and yet we scored one less goal in that second half, and we conceded. So it was a bit of a bizarre game from start to finish. But top and tailed, to steal from Chris Sutton there by Daizen Maeda, started the scoring and finished the scoring. Scores well, he's playing through the middle, scores coming in from the wing. He's such an important player for us this season. And he's come up, he's come up tops again tonight. Great cameo from Yang as well, I have to say. Did great. I think the star of the show tonight, if I was to pick out anyone, would be Arne Engels. And I spoke about the team playing with a swagger in that second half. I think he played with a swagger all night tonight. With the exception of the wee sloppy bit right at the start of the first half, I thought it was probably his best overall performance in a Celtic shirt. I thought he was everywhere. I thought he covered a hell of a lot of ground. He can be he's not a flair player, but he's very, very good at the fundamentals. Engels, good range of passing, good movement, decent physicality. Reads the game pretty well at times. Can build the play from back to front. I genuinely think he's going to become an absolutely superb player for us. And he's definitely someone that I know there's a lot of talk about how much we paid for him. I've got absolute confidence that when the time comes, and I don't want it to come too soon, but when the time comes, we'll more than probably double, if not treble, what we paid for him.
Yeah, I thought he was brilliant. And just obviously, you've already name-checked Chris Sutton. I'm going to do it again, Kevin, because he started describing assists as delicious. And we all know who owns that descriptive word, because it's the man on the bottom left who looks like Barabbas. Kevin, Chris Sutton has nicked your line, mate.
Aye, well, he's about 6'4", so I'll let him. I'm not going to argue with him. What goal was that for again? Sorry, that he's used. That was it.
That was a final
AJ's cross for Maeda's goal.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Because I'll give him the copyright usage for that one, because it was a delicious ball across by AJ. And like I've been Yang's biggest detractor, I think, on the Acsom match day shows over the last at least 6 months, if not the last year. I'll give him credit where it's due. He was very influential in that second half. I'm not going to say I was waiting for him to have a poor performance when he came on, but I did want to make a note of how many games this is. It was his 56th game for us, and up until today, he's scored 3 goals. He's given us probably 6 flashes of something that he could do in a Celtic jersey, and I've just been thinking, it's not enough. And I'm quite happy to eat my words on that one, because in 72 minutes he scores. On 88, I think he sets up a chance that Maeda should be braver for, to go for it at the back post. I'm not even braver for, there's no one near him, he should try and slide in and get to it. And then in 92, he gets the pre-assist for AJ's delicious ball across for Maeda. So
pre-assist? Pre-assist?
This is a
listen, I'm trying to give Yang some praise for the first time, so I'll go to the extreme lengths for him. So I think he did really well, but it was a delicious ball, and Maeda, again, like Chris says, put him up front through the middle, he'll score goals. Put him out wide and he'll score goals. He'll give you all the energy in the world, regardless of the way you play him. I thought he was good tonight. I agree again that Engels is probably man of the match. From a Celtic perspective, he was a dynamo in the midfield. I'm going to say, I think he covered quite a lot of the ground. He was strong in tackles. He was linking the play up. He's involved in the first 3 goals. So yeah, overall, though, to say it's Chrissy's word again, it was a bizarre match, because I don't think we were great, but we've won 5-1. And we've all sat here before and covered games where we've absolutely pummeled a team and won by a single goal.
Yeah.
So It's an interesting one to be on the reverse side. We've not really been that well. We've probably given up 3 or 4 of the best chances in the game to Aberdeen. They weren't clinical, we were, and that was the big difference tonight.
Yeah, and we'll take it all day long, Kevin. I agree with you, mate. It wasn't perfectly refined as a performance, but 5-1, and we can start looking at some of the performances. And I want to look individually at some of the names already mentioned and a few more. But overall, Sean, what did you make of it yourself? It was a better second half, I think.
Yeah, I think. I think Aberdeen. I think the third goal kind of killed Aberdeen off because it really was like at 3-0 was harsh on Aberdeen at halftime. They did come to play. They created a lot of chances in the first 20 minutes. The first 10 minutes pretty much belonged to them, and we were still looking like a bit sloppy in those first 10 minutes, almost like kind of the start of the Hibs game. But we managed to come through it without having to make 3 subs like we had to do in Edinburgh. So the players on the pitch managed to sort it out. And I think the goal, when we do open the scoring, I think that does kind of change the game a bit. And then the second one in the counter attack. So it was very different in the second half. We really controlled the game a lot more, and I think part of that's down to Aberdeen kind of, knowing that they weren't going to get back into it, and down to just a bit of fatigue and just our quality kind of showing through. We showed our quality in the first half by being clinical, and we showed our quality in the second half when we controlled the game. We've been watching Celtic for decades now, and there's been numerous times where in the past where you win a game 1-0 or you win a game 2-1 and you go, oh, that's the stuff champions are made of. We weren't at our best, but we still won by a goal. Well, tonight we weren't at our best for large parts of the game, and we won 5-1. So I don't know what that says about where our standards are at right now. I think it says that we are just so far ahead of the teams in this league that even when we're not on it, we still win 5-1, and that's I don't know what that says where we're at right now. It says something about Scottish football. It says quite a lot. So I actually agree. Engels was sensational. I actually thought Maeda edged him for man of the match, but it was a close second for me, Engels. But yeah, I wouldn't be upset with Engels getting man of the match. I thought he was sensational as well. He was involved directly in the build up to 4 of the goals. And Maeda's involved directly in 4 of the goals as well. So I think the two of them were excellent tonight.
Yeah, there was a passage of play where McGregor loses the ball, Engels wins it back. Hatate loses the ball, Engels wins it back.
Yeah, double tackle.
I was just thinking to myself, he's absolutely covering every blade of grass. He's backing up his midfield teammates. Some great comments coming through. I'm going to go through that, and then we will look individually at some of the players. Tony Cassidy's getting the Youngsters Paradise on tonight, and that's fair enough. And Ewan Boy Martin wants to know who's in the Yang Gang. Are we in the Yang Gang yet? You've got to be careful when you say that. Are you in the Yang Gang yet? Who knows? And here we go. Ewan Boy Martin. At this rate, Maeda will score over 35 goals. Best since Larsson. He's thrown the grenade in. We were talking last season about Kyogo being the best since Larsson. And I've got to always point this out. We're not comparing them to Larsson. The best striker since Larsson left the football club. I think Maeda's done incredibly well. He seems to have improved season on season. I never ever thought he was a bad player, but he was inconsistent, sometimes all in the same half of football. He would do something spectacular, then he would hit the Green Brigade with a cross. And that was always the joke here. And if he had that consistency or that final ball, you think he would be the next guy in line to flee the nest. He'd be the top player. And this season, Chris, Daizen Maeda, 25 goals, 9 assists. And that's for a player. Did he get that assist actually for the McGregor's goal? Does Maeda get that, or does Engels get that? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if Engels touched it. But, it's incredible for a player who has played the majority of his games on the left wing. I don't know what I prefer. Do I prefer bald Maeda? Do I prefer the peroxide Maeda? Whatever he's got on his barnet, he is tremendous. And this is the best season we've seen. Probably the best season of his career, Chris.
Yeah, I'm not going to get drawn into the best since Larsson debate. What I will say is he's best since Kyogo, so I'll stick with that one. He's a player that you can see since joining the club under Ange. Under Ange, I think he was all about pace. He was all about harassing the defenders, but he was a little bit one-dimensional. I think as a player. And to be honest, even at that point, I'm not sure I would have envisioned the improvement as a footballer that's came from Daizen Maeda, but I think his all-round game has improved season on season. I mean, we saw him starting to add, real defensive capability to his game, going back and helping out the left-back position, using that energy in the right way. Then, he started to add in, goals. We've seen him score some spectacular goals as well as some, fairly, simple tap-ins. Seen him miss quite a few as well. But this season, he's become much more clinical, looks a real threat, whether he's coming in from the wing, whether he's, playing up front. I mean, I think he is, for me, the first choice striker at the moment because of what he brings. I think he's a predator in the box. When he's coming in from the wing, he's added an element of what we used to see from Leo Labada. When the strikers maybe dragging the defenders, he's coming in and he's finding himself in those positions in the box, which I think benefits him because I still don't think he's the best at crossing the ball, particularly when he's going at pace. I think that's still the weakest area of his game. But he's refined and he's improved all the other elements that you need. And as a result, we've got a really good player to play up front in our system, who we also have the flexibility of sticking out in the wing and giving, relief to some of the guys we bring on. Ida, we've got that presence still in the box. And suddenly, whoever was marking Jota is now marking Maeda. I mean, what a nightmare for a defender. So I think Maeda is, and I've got to give the manager and the coaching staff credit, as well as the player himself. Collectively, I think they've recognised areas of his game that needed to develop and needed to improve, and by God, he's done it. Really, really good. And I would say now he's among the most valuable players in our team, hands down.
It's interesting, Kevin, that he divided opinion for a long time among certain sections of the Celtic fan base. And I remember when Brendan came back, people were asking, because Ange was so influential in these guys' careers, Kev, bringing them over from Japan, Kyogo, Hatate, and of course Maeda. The others were kind of fringe players, so there was always that chance that they would leave, and they have done. But Maeda, you kind of looked at him and you thought, will he be able to get a tune out of Maeda the way that Ange did? And he seems to have got even more out of Daizen. He was the player that you could always count on to terrorise. You're laughing because I called him Daizen. To terrorise James Tavernier. But you look at what he's done this season. You look at him in the Champions League. Scored against Borussia Dortmund. You forget that because it was a horrendous night. That brilliant goal against Brugge, and then you've got the League Cup final goal. If you score that in the FA Cup final, it's a world-class goal. 3 touches, unbelievable goal. What is it Brendan's done? I mean, by the way, I'm not just saying it's the gaffer. It was the same with Matt O'Reilly last season. Massive amounts of that is on the player, but he's definitely playing differently and he's improved under Brendan Rodgers.
He has. He's improved massively. You were talking before the game, or asking me before the game about AJ and about the improvements that he's made under Rodgers. So for me, I'd say I think that's more just Johnson's mentality, and he'd had his form had dropped a little bit, and then he's kind of realised that he's done what he needs to do to get his form back up. Maeda's a totally different case, and I think you've got to probably look at Brendan Rodgers and give him and the coaching staff and whoever's working behind the scenes and on Maeda a lot of credit for that, because I always laugh when you called him Daizen, because that's what we'd spoken about before. It's the toss of the coin before. Which one were you going to get? Was it the good Maeda or was it the evil twin Daizen that was going to come out? And you could get the same player within the same half or within the same run on an attack. He would be brilliant to beat his man, and then, like you say, slice his cross into the Green Brigade. That's what you were getting from him. And now we've got this almost a complete centre forward. He's so consistent. He's become, it's the cliche, but he's become a bit of the fox in the box type centre forward, and the first goal proves that. He's in the right place, right time to pounce when the ball ricochets up in the air and goes into that kind of middle of the box area. He's there. It's one touch and it's a goal. The second goal, again, it's very clever play. Or his second goal, the last goal, it's very clever play. It is reminiscent of Leo Labada, just finding the bit of space at the back post once a centre forward has pulled the defender away and he's come in. He's really just become a more rounded player. and he was probably the one out of the three Japanese players, because I'll not really count Iwata or Kobayashi, because I think they were kind of 1 foot out the door anyway.
What about Ideguchi?
He was
I know, I was going to say.
Ideguchi, of course, Jesus, forgotten completely about him.
Didn't Barry Ferguson's Alawad put him out the game? Aye.
That's right. Yes. Anyway, aye. So anyway, he was the one out of the three that I had the least confidence in, I would think, as being a Rodgers player.
Mm-hmm.
Kyogo, I just thought he's a goal scorer. And although Rodgers maybe doesn't want a 40-goal a season centre forward, you do want a Kyogo in your team. I would have thought, he's guaranteed goals, especially in the big games. I had confidence he'd make it. Turns out that over time, he's just not Rodgers' type of centre forward, and that's why he's been moved on. Hatate, I thought, was going to have the impact that Matt O'Reilly ended up having, because again, Rodgers likes to have that number 10 type player. I'd say he would be more like Stuart Armstrong to compare back to the previous Rodgers team, and Rodgers worked on him and made him a great player. I thought he'd do the same with Rio, but Daizen Maeda, I'd almost tricked myself there. Maeda, I had my doubts as to whether he would fit in or how long he would fit in the team, because I just wasn't sure if he really was the Rodgers player. He's not a Paddy Roberts or a Scott Sinclair type winger. He's not a Dembele or a Edward centre forward. So I just wondered, but we all know that he's got talent. He was a bit of a rough diamond. Rodgers has obviously done a lot of work in him in the training ground, and he's now becoming very much that polished and kind of complete centre forward, and at the very time when we need one as well. So it's all turning up roses at the moment.
You've said something really interesting there, Kev. Often we watch players, Sean, and we say, and I've said this about Kuhn. I've said Kuhn reminds me a bit of Paddy Roberts, the way that he drifts inside and keeps drifting inside, and Roberts used to do that. And then you'll look at a striker and you'll say, he reminds me of X, Y, or Z. But Daizen Maeda is unique. I can't think of another player quite like him. Brendan Rodgers has spoken about him being like one of the best pressing forwards in world football. And I really can't think of a player quite like Daizen Maeda that's played for Celtic.
No, not that's played for Celtic anyway. No, I need to have a think about that one. I think it was a cliche a while back where, like, if someone was just really direct and didn't have any skill, then it was like, I don't want to say it, I'm not comparing them, but like Ollie Burke, for example, right? He's a player that just has direct, plays with pace, physical, can do the pressing thing. But that's not comparing them. Ollie Burke would miss a chance from 2 yards out when it was on a plate. But what Daizen Maeda was obviously, we had feelings, we had thoughts that was Daizen Maeda's crutch. That was why he was here at Celtic. Why he's only ever been linked with a move to Southampton 2 years ago and then nothing else. But I think there'll be some bigger links this summer, and I hope he stays. The fact that nothing has been in the papers suggests two things. It's still a couple of weeks until the derby, so it's too early for the papers to be unsettling him. And also that his agent has not been sniffing around other clubs, try to drum up interest for a move, which means he's happy here. I hope obviously that's a big inference, but that's what I hope is the case. I'm inferring from the lack of rumours. And we're talking about the cutting in thing from wingers. Yeah, Paddy Roberts did that a lot. And I think it's a big feature of modern wingers. When you think of Jota tonight and most games this season, like I think maybe he started on the right wing in one of the games, but most times he's featured on the left wing and he's been cutting in. Kuhn obviously cuts in, and if you watch Yang tonight, he's mostly cutting in as well. I do actually think that maybe a bit of an uptick in Yang has come from when Jota's arrived, and I don't know if that's the competition. I don't know if it's just having another player to learn off in the training ground and watching games. Maybe it was just the fact that he had a run of games in the team. Like he had the 7 or 8 games in a row where he played and started 4 or 5, and so. Yeah, I mean, Yang was good tonight. He was like, it wasn't just like, it wasn't just running up against that, a tired Falkirk or whatever. Like he actually was good, and he made some good decisions and good passes and had good intensity. So We're actually looking pretty good in that wing area. The concern really is that one of the wingers is having to play as a striker, so that's a bit of a squad issue. But the players are looking good right now, and there's 10 games left in the league. We're 16 points ahead, and that's a sensational position to be in.
It's brilliant. It's absolutely great. Just as Tony Cassidy says here now, we're going to stick to the subject of Yang then, Sean, seeing as you brought him back up. And we need to know who's all in the Yang gang. So Paul O'Neill quite rightly says, I know you're a fan of Scales, but we just witnessed why he isn't good enough for us. We'll come back to that. I just never ever thought he was a left back. I really didn't. Although it didn't matter what position he was playing in, he was skint for the Aberdeen goal. But the reason that I brought the comments up here was because there's another one from David Boyle in relation to Yang. Yang was great when he came on. If he can be stronger when needing to hold up the ball defensively. Yang, are we in the Yang gang? I guess that's what I'm trying to get at. Chris, I'm going to ask you first, because Kevin read it, the stats weren't great. And at some point, there's been an upturn in form. He's starting to get in about the goals and the assists, and you think, well, maybe Rodgers is refining that. Rodgers has certainly persevered with him. You know, where's Palmer? Yang's still at the football club. You know, and there was probably a flip of a coin between the two of them for a long time for me. He's still at the football club and he's now contributing. And if you've maybe criticised them in the past, you're maybe looking at it like Sean has tonight and said, actually, he's bringing something to the table now. There could well be an influence of Jota. See, when Jota went on that run where the third touch looked heavy, but it was deliberately so because he knocked it past the defender.
Yes.
He was doing stuff that I want to see more from Kuhn. You know, he was actually, there was the end product too often recently. And it's probably because Kuhn's now getting doubled and trebled up on. There's no end product with Kuhn. Whereas Jota, that was just a blistering burst of pace. And he actually got the shot in. And Yang was doing that from the right-hand side. So maybe there is an inspiration or an influence from Jota. Chris, are you in the Yang gang?
Am I in the Yang gang? Oh God, that sounds awful when you say it. Do you know what?
He doesn't want to admit it, even if you are in it. Look, this guy's calling him Yang Aldo. Yang Aldo. It's a lot harder to say than you think. There you go.
He's got a long way to go, but he's certainly moving in the right direction. And I think, you know, you've got to give credit again to the coaching staff, the manager, and of course the player himself. There could very well be an influence. I think the more quality players you have around you, the better you have to be, and the more you have to try and elevate your game. And you elevate your game by learning from these type of players. I mean, you imagine what it must have been like to play alongside guys like Henrik Larsson, Lubomir Moravcik, you know, Stan Petrov, and Sutton and Hartson, etc. You know, I think that's it must have a similar effect, and we know the quality that Jota's got. Earlier tonight, when at the start of the game, when we were a little bit loose, we were a little bit sloppy. You needed someone to take the initiative, and for me, that first chance that Jota took, where he takes brilliant first touch, takes two players out, then goes right across goal, heavy touch, lines up for the shot, and it's not the best shot, it's a good save, good position for the keeper. But the point is, he was trying to make something happen. He was taking the initiative, and I think that's kind of the role of a winger or a forward player, is to take the initiative, try and take the game, turn maybe defence into attack and make something happen. Even if you don't necessarily get the goal, you're making something happen. You're lifting the crowd, and you're maybe trying to change the momentum swing during the game. So you're hoping that somebody like Yang is looking at that. And I mean, he was involved in two of the goals, including the one he scored in that second half. The one he scored, I think Chris Sutton, I didn't go back and count the passes. I tried to do it in the replays, but I think Chris Sutton said it was 17 passes in the build-up to that goal. And he played a couple of those passes before he actually finished the chance off. So his movement was good. He was prepared to take the ball. He was prepared to run in there and take the chance. And we've seen more of that from him in recent games. You know, he's willing to get into the positions. Still a little bit raw, still looks a little bit scrappy at times, but you're seeing potential there. You're starting to see maybe it's just one of these players who's a real late bloomer, and he's needing this time to bed in. He's needing to be playing alongside these players. Needs the competition pushing him. But ultimately, transfer window's over. We've got two competitions that we still have to win, and he's getting game time. He's getting minutes. So it's a great opportunity for him to continue his development and actually show not only the manager and the staff, but actually the fans, that he deserves a jersey at this football club. And, scoring goals and getting assists is a great way to do it, or pre-assist, as Kevin's coined the term now. But,
the
not sure about that one.
When are we going to start talking about the tertiary assist, Kevin? When we talk the Japanese,
and Alan Morrison will do a podcast on that.
I cannot wait. The Japanese contingent of 6 is now 2, and obviously we tapped into the South Korean market as well with 3 players coming to the football club: Oh, Yang, and Kwon, and it looks as though Yang is the only hope for one of them to be a success. And as long as he is contributing, because Forrest's been out for a while now, and that was one of the things. Like last season, Forrest was a massive part of our success in the second half of the season. He was a player that Rodgers later on admitted he didn't think he was going to be part of his plans last season. He came in and he made a huge impact. And you start looking at guys like that and you think to yourself, what if Forrest didn't make that impact? What if Ida didn't make that impact? And Ida's come in for some criticism, so I want to touch on this tonight. The Ida I saw tonight is a different player to the Ida I saw at Easter Road. Every time he got the ball, it was like sticking to him. He turned 3 times and got a couple of shots in, and I thought he looked really, really sharp and confident and all these things that gets him a start. And then sometimes he gets a start, Kevin. He fails to show up. He was poor against Hibs. But it was good to see him back on it tonight.
It was, and sometimes you get players that are like that are just more impact players, or better off the bench, or different games, different venues maybe suit them better. Because from what I saw of the weekend's game, Ida was off it. He was just wasn't at the races for the time he was in the park, and that comes off the back of scoring that goal against Dundee United, where he's absolutely leathered it in the top corner. And it's a worldie, so he should be going into that game kind of full of confidence. Tonight, when he's come off the bench, I think he's got a point to prove because of the poor performance at the weekend. And for me as well, I think he did it. I think he proved his point. I think he was good at holding the ball up. Some of his link-up play maybe wasn't great. The passes weren't making it, but I think that's a criticism you could probably label or put all the players in the park tonight. No one's going to have a particularly high pass percentage completion rate, I don't think. But his hold-up play was good. He was holding it in. He was trying to link the play. He did get a couple of shots away, which is what you want to see from a centre forward. I'd far rather my centre forward was in an opportunity to miss it than not be there at all. And he is generally a player that will make himself available to miss. One of these days he'll go on a scoring run for us, I'm sure of it. I think he's got it in him. But the sooner the better that happens for him, because as a centre forward he thrives on confidence. So it'll be interesting to see if he starts or comes off the bench and does it the weekend against St Mirren. I think that's another big game for him. But going on tonight, I think he made an impact coming off the bench. Yang, we've spoken about, definitely made an impact coming off the bench. I thought Luke McCowan did well coming off the bench as well. And normally we don't see that kind of impact from the subs. So I think it was good to see those 3 all getting involved. Bonner's done decent for a young boy coming on. He's shown some decent touches of the ball, quite direct as well when he was on it, confident. Another positive impact. The only one that didn't was Liam Scales, because he does get done for the goal. That's unfortunate for him. But on the whole, the way that second half went, we needed to make subs to positively influence the half for us and let it not peter out. And every one of them really pretty much made that positive impact that we wanted.
Yeah. And you think to yourself, Greg Taylor and Paulo Bernardo and Jamesy Forrest will come back between now and the end of the season. It really will bolster things. But I'm in agreement at the moment, Sean. I still think at this moment in time, the starting 11 is our strongest team. Ida, we look back on last season, look at some of the impact performances that he had. Motherwell, I think at Fir Park, he came in as a sub, didn't he? Ibrox, Scottish Cup final. There were games where he's come into the match and made a real impact. See, tonight, and I think I'm repeating myself here, when the ball comes into him and he turns and shoots, it's because he's not thinking about it. There's an instinct here. But then when he finds himself with the ball out wide and he's got a moment, he hesitates, doesn't he? He hesitates. Yeah. He's not quite sure what to do. I don't know, is that game intelligence or is he just much more a penalty box striker? I can't put my finger on it, Sean, but he's a type of player at the moment, a wee bit like Trusty, in that his performances are on two ends of the scale. You never get a 6. He's right up there winning games, or he's Hibbsed it like he did at the weekend. And thankfully tonight, he looked good again.
Yeah, he's inconsistent, and I think a lot of that does come down to mentality, focus, belief, whatever, and that will change from week to week. Sometimes he'll just be on it, sometimes he won't be, and he's still young. He's 23, something like that. I think when Maeda signs for us, he's 24, so he's just still younger than Maeda was, and we weren't really talking about Maeda having great consistency until this season. So I think we know that he can do it. We know that there's a player in there, and we just want to see it more often, more consistent. I'm just side-eyeing this comments from Rodgers and Engels that's came out. They both said that everyone was unhappy at halftime with the performance, despite being 3-0 up. So Rodgers was saying they weren't happy with the poor pressing, that we weren't pressing Aberdeen hard enough. My impression in the first half was that we were sloppy in possession, and that's what Engels has implied that as well. So that was interesting as well. So we got it tight on the comments for not being overly optimistic, not being effusive at halftime, but if the Celtic manager and man of the match think we weren't good in the first half, then who am I to argue with him?
The thing is, it comes down to the standards that team and that manager have set. So you're only living up to your own standards. So absolutely, Sean. And it's great to know that they're coming out and feeling like that, because they just want to be better, constantly improving. Now, on Thursday night, a couple of nights away, the big man, I need to sit on a stage with this guy, and beforehand, I need to do like 50 push-ups and sit-ups and all that kind of stuff. And Chris helps me in the back green room. Don't you, Chris? What happens in the green room stays in there. But Johan Mjällby is coming to Glasgow, and we're going to have the big fella on the stage in Glasgow at Gracie's. 31 tickets left last time I checked. So hopefully we can push that towards a sellout. Come along. And if you want a wee discount, there's a promo code, Acsom 1888. Took me ages to come up with that. That's the promo code. Type it in at checkout and you'll get a wee discount for being loyal viewers of A Celtic State of Mind. Thanks, everybody, for getting involved. And thank you once again to Kevin, Chris and Sean for joining us on A Celtic State of Mind.